You have any questions for me?
How long have you been teaching?
6 years.
Congrats.
Thank you. I feel like that's still not, it's definitely not enough, but yeah, I feel like that's a good amount for now.
It's enough to know something, right?
I know something. I know something for sure.
Right.
So, I'm just got to just keep learning,
Mm-hmm.
All right. So just making sure. And it's Chelsea with an S at the end, right?
Chelsea. No. Ooh. Is it my iPhone thing? It's Chelsea. Chelseea.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Because it has it. Okay, cool.
I never remember to rename that. My Lord.
So I'm going to give you the link to the live and you could share it with, whoever you would like to share it with. It's going to be up as soon as, we're done. And if you would love to subscribe to my channel, I really appreciate that.
Oh, yeah. Did you put the link in the chat?
I'm going to do that right now.
Perfect.
It's going to get your name. I got to get your name right. All right. So, okay, here it is.
Is it okay if I share it out right now?
Of course.
Okay. Copy. Let's get it going. Now that's exciting. Like, you guys, I'm doing a thing again. I know it's crazy. It's happening again.
It's okay.
Compose. We're just gonna throw a picture out there and put it on live.
Beautiful.
I'm gonna put it on my campaign sites. That'd be great. Done. Join me live with, how do I say your name? I don't want to.
Yep, Calvin Nella. Yep, Calvin.
All right.
Yep. You said Teach Simple Podcast. And it's McElroy?
Or McElroy, however it's easiest to say.
McElroy, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Teach Simple Podcast. Perfect. Next. Boom, boom, boom. All right, ready to post. There we go. Post now. It's done.
Perfect.
We did it.
Let's get it.
Yeah.
All right. Welcome to Teach Simple Podcast. We focus on providing simple solutions in the classroom. I have my sister, Chelsea. She is coming through. And where's your location right now, Chelsea? You're in somewhere that's hot, right?
No, I'm in Tacoma, Washington, south of Seattle. I'm in a rainy place. But today it's warm-ish.
Yeah, so she's in the place where the Seahawks play. What else? Everything I think of this. Seattle was so interesting to me because it's like a West Coast, but it's like a Northwest Coast vibe. And so
we're just straight up Pacific Northwest. I would not consider Tacoma or Seattle very West Coast at all.
I love it. I love it though. But as you can see, she's coming through with the colorful hair. So you already know her spirit is just as colorful. She has an amazing teacher voice and she's running for school board. Elect Chelsea is her campaign. And I'm just so happy to have you on the Teach Simple Podcast. What's up? How you doing today?
I'm good. I'm really happy to be here. So glad we met, connected, reconnected, and now I'm here.
Absolutely. And we met on Clubhouse, right? And it was a circumstance that we never thought that it would be, right? Us communicating and networking with just our voices and one picture. And we did that religiously. You had this amazing room. I believe it was a shoot your shot room where people could come in and shoot their shot with their business, shoot their shot with their pitches, shoot their shot with whatever they got going on. And you was an amazing moderator. And again, I give credit to your teacher voice. And I'm just so happy that we got to get back together and you're running for school board now. So I'm so happy those Clubhouse skills were transferable.
Right. Thank God for Clubhouse. Clubhouse pushed me in the right direction. It's been a journey for sure. And I think the end of 2020, we're all on Clubhouse, the new app, and we're just trying to explore like deeper into who we are, what we're doing, what we're all about. And next thing you know, here we are, you know, your podcast is popping and I'm running for school board. So, I mean, it all worked out.
Amen. Amen. I love that. I love that. And Chelsea is not only an amazing moderator and running for school board, you also are early childhood educator. So you used to work with the babies. So definitely appreciate that. We definitely got to give more credit to our early childhood educators because you all are definitely, you know, you're fighting a fight just as much as we are in secondary. So again, and welcome to the T Simple Podcast.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So let's go ahead and jump into it. So teacher tip of the week. I know you said you had a teacher tip that you just really wanted to get off. So I'm going to go ahead and just defer to the young lady in the room. And I want to give you the platform to go ahead. What's your teacher tip of the week for our teachers out there? You know, it's end of the school year. A lot of us are turning our cameras off and we're just teaching and we're just like trying to get through it. You know, it's not like we can just watch movies. We can watch movies, but it's just a different feeling, you know? And so, you know, what's something you can give to the teachers out there to kind of, you know, get their spirits up or just, you know, go ahead and, you know, give them some knowledge?
Just a reminder, I would say for all teachers, don't assume the child's name, ask the child their name and say it the way they said it to you. You know, as you know, you're a Black man teaching, I'm a Black woman teaching. I've been doing this early learning for 16 years now. And so with that, knowledge is power, but their names, like that is their introductory to like your relationship with them. So if you're going to have a good relationship with your students, you should at least know their names. When you're snapping like Jimmy, Johnny, Jerusalem, what is your name? You know, it becomes a problem where they're like, you don't even know my name, so why would I respect you? You want to build that trust early. And yeah, I'm with my little people, the name is serious. 3 and 4-year-olds, you better get it right. So that is my teacher tip of the day.
Thank you so much. And that respect, right? You know, I'm always going to go back to where we met and just feeling like the amount of respect that you got for your way of giving respect to people, you know, and your ability to moderate. And moderation means like you are facilitating, you are taking care of fires, you are making sure you're giving affirmations, you're doing all this, you're doing like 7 things at once, right? That's what teachers do. And you just like, you know what, you know, I'm just gonna run for school board. You know, let's just go ahead and put it to overdrive. I'm gonna, you know, put it, you know, become a school board member. So why, you know, what was the why behind this, you know, this opportunity, and you know, why should people be more involved with the school board? So why you did it, and why should people be involved with the school board?
So I would say, I feel like I took all of 2020. You know, everything slowed down. And that was the year I actually started getting involved in local politics and learning about how our cities run and how they operate. As I'm going to more like political leaning meetings and showing up at city council meetings and showing up at the library meetings, I became a neighborhood council representative for my neighborhood because I saw that there was 8 vacant seats. And had I never taken the time to get involved, I would have known there's 8 vacant seats. And something similar kind of happened with the school board. An incumbent, a Black woman, is not running for reelection. So I'm in these political meetings, and you know who's in the political meetings. Like, I don't have to say it. It's old people, old retired people, and specifically non-diverse people. Those are the people showing up in all these meetings. They're having a whole conversation about who's going to be our next elected officials. And I'm sitting there like, they should not be the ones making this call, specifically about our children. Tacoma Public Schools is 62% diverse population. So I don't think a retired, non-diverse population should be the ones making the deciding factors of who's going to represent these kids. Outside of being a preschool teacher, I'm also a step team coach, a youth mentor, a social emotional coach, and advocate. So I'm like, they're asking who's going to run, who's going to run. I didn't say anything because I knew first they didn't expect me to be at that meeting. So I launched my campaign 2 weeks after sitting in a meeting, listening to folks talk about basically the mechanisms of our city and how they're going to shape it. And I decided to be a cog in that wheel and say, nah, we're going to stop this right here. We're going to change things.
So if you're speaking to, say, a disaffected voter, right? Because so let's talk about the voting. So how do you get elected into a school board real quick?
Oh, man, this is a November election. So just like the 2020 presidential election, odd year elections really matter. I think odd year elections matter more than presidential elections because
Right.
that's what's going to shape your city, your ports of entry, your council, and even your county. So, and these are things I just learned last year, and that's why I'm not really adept in it, but I know that the odd years are really what's going to shape how your city operates. So this is a November election, just like a presidential election. We go through the whole term. We just have filing week. So we file this week. By August, there's a primary if you have people running against you. And then by November, we vote. So just like in the presidential years, that's what's happening in your odd years. So wherever you're listening, look it up. There is an election happening in your city right now. I can guarantee it.
And so, say if you're speaking to like a disaffected voter, right? You know, he or she isn't involved with their school board activity, like you already talked about, and we know there's many factors why. Why should they vote for you? And why should they just be involved as well? So why should they vote for you, and why do they need to be more engaged?
I feel I feel conflicted in this. I feel that people should be engaged in a place where they feel safe and where they feel heard and respected. And I understand why people are disaffected, especially in my area, right? But
Yeah.
I feel that when you elect people who are door breakers and the opposite of a gatekeeper, someone who's going to open that door and let the floodgates of real people into these elected seats. They may not run for office themselves, but I want those people standing behind me, standing, linking arms with me, letting me know, that they want to be involved, and by elevating their voices and issues that matter to them. I'm not somebody who makes a lot of money, and I'm a preschool teacher. We are poor. I am living under the poverty line. But even with making no money, I can still make an impact. And so that's what I've really been telling people who are not involved. They're like, well, I'm broke and I'm this and I'm that. And I'm like, me too. And we're going to change this together because there's more of us than there are of them. And we should have a seat at the table. We should make our voices heard. So I think I get people really riled up because first I walk in with purple hair and nobody expects that. And then I walk in really loud. Nobody expects that. Then I say exactly what we're all thinking in front of populations that they are like, wait, you said that in front of, yes, I did. And I think that really will just get people more energized into being involved. And once you're a disaffected voter, once you get behind a good candidate and they do what they're supposed to do, I think those people then go on to be more involved years to come.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Great job. Great job. And the door breaker, I love that, right? Because we have to understand that it's not just one person who has the power. It's a team of people. It's a vision, right? It is expectations, but you always need that one person that's going to break that door open so you can allow all those people to get that equity. That's excellent. And so talking about disaffected voters a lot, and that's very 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 important to me because we have 2022 coming up, right? And we are in jeopardy of losing the House, right? We just won back the Senate, and I was thinking about just when old boy got elected in 2016 and how not only did he get elected, he also had the House, he also had the Senate as well, and they were able to just do so many things, right? Exercise their power within their rights. And so my question is just, so my question is, how do we make sure that people stay motivated, right? Throughout the entire process, right? So like you said, that once they get involved, they get excited, so what are some of your ways that you want to keep them there for the long term? And maybe just kind of talk about your vision as well with the school board.
For me, everything in my life has always been transparency, inclusion, accessibility, right? And for me, I just think it will be really important for them to get involved locally. When you only focus on that big presidential race and that turnout, that's how we lose seats. And that's the issue. I don't think there's been enough support to get people involved in their legislative districts. I didn't even know what that was. I found out what an LD was last year, August. after the primary. So I'm like, so there were people in my community this whole time who I could have been engaging with, involved with. And then within an LD, there's a precinct committee officer. There's somebody who lives in your neighborhood who's supposed to be giving you information about what's going on locally. I found out my precinct hasn't had an officer in 8 years. Wow. So that's another issue. So getting involved locally at that micro level will keep you engaged for the long haul, because once I think in December, I hosted a rally to save our health department because the county was trying to shut it down. Because had I not been involved in August, I got these little micro pieces of information. I found out what the county was doing. I found out what the city council was doing. And so it kept me engaged. So every 3 months, there's a crisis politically because people are vying for power and people are taking away the rights of human beings in your cities, in your towns. It might be a water ordinance. It might be a port of entry new bylaw being passed. But when you don't know, you don't know. So I wasn't involved for a long time because nobody reached out to me, but no one reached out because we didn't have a committee officer in my area. So what I do, I stepped up, like, let me be that officer. So I find myself overly engaged and overly involved, but I feel so energized because every time I learn something, I tell my community and then they're all excited too. They're like, what are you doing next, Chelsea? I'm like, look, we're hosting a protest. We're going to the parks. We're cleaning them up. Like, and it's been a lot of fun, honestly. And I don't think that politics was ever meant to be fun. I think it was meant to be exclusive and to be non-transparent. And I think being a door breaker, that I like to call myself, I think we're having a lot of fun. Me and all my friends, we're just smashing doors. That's all we do. And that makes politics really exciting. I think young people are disenfranchised. I think teachers are left out of a lot of conversations. And I think the poor. So between the young people, the educators, and the poor, we got this. And as we get more information, we spread it around. And then I want to see door breakers in every city, in every county. I think we can really affect a lot of change. For me, it starts with the school board because kids are my first love, my first passion. And if I can create some transparency there, create some inclusion there, create some accessibility for like our deaf and hard of hearing, for our low income and our homeless people and families, then what can I do after I get that door broken down and I bring more people to those tables? Once I'm there, I feel like there's going to be the next person right after me, like, Chelsea, pass the torch. And I'm not someone who's going to be like, no, let me hold on to power forever. If somebody comes in and they're like, I've seen your mission, I've seen your work, you've broken the door and I'm ready to step up, who would I be to say no? And I think that's what a lot of politicians do. They retire as politicians. They never pass the mantle. And I mean, you were talking about the Senate and the House, and I think that means you're Democratic leaning. I understand them too. But there's a lot of older people in the Democratic Party who are still holding on to power. So where is that succession planning?
Yeah.
Right. How are we going to get these younger people involved? And if we continue to disenfranchise them and kick them out until they're 45, by that time they are so not engaged, they're never going to come to the table.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. And it's all about education. Stacey Abrams talks about how, voter suppression is more than just, you physically putting these systems in place that make it harder for people to vote, but you actually convince people that the system doesn't work. Right.
Yep.
You convince people that if they vote, it won't matter. And she said, like, that's a form of voter suppression. And just kind of hearing the disparity and the lack of officers in your district, I can say that is a product of that. And people are intentionally not trying to, give this information out because they don't want disenfranchised people to be enfranchised. And yeah, so let's talk about the education, right? So how much, so as a teacher, right, how much has your teacher hat helped you throughout this journey?
Definitely. Oh my God, you're putting out fires. That is all teachers do, and especially preschool teachers. But I think now I've just been able to use my experience and use my voice to elevate issues that matter to me. Just this past month, at the beginning of this month, I was hosting a convention on the preschool to prison pipeline and checking our biases as preschool teachers, right? I don't feel like that conversation is being had enough. The people in the room don't look like me, don't talk like me. And we got to a conversation about expulsion. preschoolers, 3-year-olds are being expelled from preschools. And this is not like a local issue. This is a national issue. And I think that my teacher hat and my lived experience and my Black experience, just being honest, has really lent itself towards me being a person busting through a door, showing up in a place where they didn't expect to see me because someone invited me in, because I'm running for office, because I held this seat. And then once I'm in the door, I'm like, hey, let me give you some information.
Yeah.
And I think when it comes direct to you, you can't deny it. So I'm sure this conversation has been had many times, and everybody was like, "Yeah, it's a problem." And then they're like, "Well, what are our next steps?" Well, we're gonna have another conference next year. That's not the next step. I walked in the door and said, "Check your bias today."
Yeah.
And I think when you have those conversations and someone's looking you in your face, even if it's on Zoom, you really can't deny my Black face and my Black experience and my Black teacher experience, which is different from my peers. But I do think that just being someone who does the work is creating a difference. A lot of politicians are not people who have done the work on the ground. They're people who raised enough money or who went to law school on somebody else's dime, and then they become politicians. I think more people who do the work should be in the seats that are enacting change in that work. So I do the work in early learning and in social emotional before and after school. I've been working with kids birth to 20 for 16 years. That's someone who should be in that seat. That's someone who's going to fight because they know exactly what their students are going through.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much again, for, the work that you do. Barack Obama says, in his book, he says the difference between a politician and an activist, right? An activist is supposed to push, right? And, put pressure, and a politician is supposed to, be diplomatic, right? Because believe it or not, right, whether you're Republican or Democrat, you are American, right? And you do have to have some type of bipartisanship, at least that's the goal, right? But we know sometimes it doesn't work like that. How do you just encourage people to be more politically active? Because a lot of people, they don't like politics because of Joe Manchin. They don't like politics because of Christian Cinema. They don't like politics because they have to call and write letters and put pressure and, do all this stuff they think that is, kind of extra. And they think that the vote is just it, when the vote is really the last step, right? The organization, all that other stuff should come first. And then you come together and all in one vote. But just kind of like add to that.
For me, that goes back to like that accessibility part, right? I think that when the message is coming from someone who doesn't look like you, who doesn't share your experience, a lot of activists, people are like, oh, it's liberal white women who are leading the charge and who are changing, things in this country, right? And so as someone who's not a liberal white woman, you're like, so where do I fit in? How am I allowed in this space? So when I come to people, they're like, oh, you're doing that purple hair lady at the grocery outlet. You. So yeah, so when I approach people, they receive it different because they think like they share, and not just that they think, they know we're at the same corner store every week. So they know that we share a lived experience. We live in similar apartments and in neighborhoods that aren't always that clean. We live in areas that the homeless people are settled into our neighborhood. We understand what we're fighting for. If we're fighting for the houseless people to be housed, we're fighting from a different view as opposed to someone driving out of their gated community to talk about the issue. We are really on the ground living side by side with our neighbors of all economic backgrounds. And I just think that when you can relate to the person who's giving the message, you're more apt to receive it. And for my friends, they're not even 35 and they're already burnt out of politics because they campaigned for somebody 5 years ago and that person never delivered on promises, or they campaigned as someone who they really weren't, got into office and did a bunch of horrible things. So we have all these young people who, when you're in college, they basically recruit you. If you're on a college campus, they're recruiting you to do the work, and you do that work for free for so long, you blink and you're 30 and you're like, what change came from all of that work that I've done? So that's why your organizing has to be legit. You have to have great people. You have to have allies across the spectrum. I got a lot of old lady friends and a lot of young men friends. And I think when we bridge that gap of race, ethnicity, and gender, and we're all talking about the same common goal, and we have like a really good strategy. I love like those links where it's like the email's already populated. You just have to put in your address and say, boom, I'm Chelsea, and the link is already there. I love that type of organizing and activism. That will flood your representative with the right words, but also they're going to say, wow, 86 people sent me the exact same email that this is an issue. They can't deny it.
Yeah.
But you get denied when the organizing is flawed or when the messenger of the organizing doesn't relate to you. And I think that's really important. For me, like I grew up kind of privileged. I went to private schools, so I had different experiences than a lot of people who look like me, who talk like me, who live where I live. So because of that, I acknowledge my own privilege. So sometimes I have to walk into spaces as a Black woman and say, hey, I'm checking my privilege out the door. I know I've had opportunities. And how can I use those opportunities to elevate the next person is what I try to do.
What do you say to people who are jealous because they were able to pass, an anti-Asian hate crime bill, but they still haven't been able to pass the anti-lynching bill? What do you say?
For me,
yeah,
I've been discussing this actually the last 2 days, this exact issue. I feel that generationally, there's been trauma inflicted upon Black people. I feel that generationally, there's been trauma inflicted upon the AAPI community. I feel that in times of collaboration, in times of, when what was it called? When assimilation was key around the 60s and 70s, there were a lot of people who were non-Black who chose assimilation over fighting side by side with Black brothers and sisters. I cannot deny my elders' lived experiences. So when my elders are saying it's not fair, it's not right, I can still acknowledge what they're saying, but still also see there's a benefit to this bill that was passed that will also help Black and brown people. I do feel that things have to move forward as it comes to a national apology. If you look up Australia, they created genocide on their continent. They essentially wiped out Aboriginal people to the point that they don't even look Aboriginal anymore. That is what happened in Australia. Their prime minister came out with a national apology to all Aboriginal people.
Yeah.
I think that there has been some apologies to the first people of this country. There's been some apologies to the Asian community in this country. But where is this national apology? We could start there. Don't even start with the money. Don't start with anti-lynching bills. Start with someone at the top saying, we are sorry for slavery. And yes, it did happen. Yes, it was horrible. Yes, it created XYZ horrible things to happen to the descendants of slaves. And that's why they're still not on their feet. If we could acknowledge that and start there, I think that would really open the floodgates for more collaboration. And I think our elders would really appreciate it. They're the ones who integrated schools, they're the ones. And they really took on the ire of white America as children. And so I cannot say they're wrong for their feelings. I can't say that they didn't go to school with Asians who were able to assimilate while they were not because of the color of their skin. So for me, I think it's a two-pronged approach where we've got to start at the top, start with an apology. The nation has to reckon with what happened. And if the nation was willing to apologize, I think that would even change a lot of people who we assume are like white racists, right? I don't think they all are. I think they're miseducated and misinformed. And I think the school system, going back to the school board, has encouraged that. We have intentionally miseducated so many generations of Americans that people don't think what happened to Black people was wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. Great answer. Do you mind if I ask you a couple more questions? I know you got to go.
You're fine.
Ask you some questions. So, Representative Scott, after the Biden's address to America, you pretty much, he said, America wasn't a racist country. And then, Kamala Harris was asked the same question, and she agreed, but she also gave context. What advice would you give to people who fall for that false equivalency? And how can we help more people not fall for false equivalencies, right? So we don't lose our eyes on the prize.
I think when we discuss systems, that's where it should start. I think the issue is racist, right? The word racist feels like an individual and an attack on white people. I have white people in my life where I'm talking about racist structures and systems where they literally were like, Chelsea, I feel attacked by what you're saying. And I'm like, I'm not even talking about you. I'm talking about the sewage and the water drainage system and how it's hurting our First Nation folks in our county, right? That's what I'm talking about. But when you use the word racist, it feels individual. And I feel that because white people are never seen as individual actors or individual. Black people, we know we walk into a room, you say one thing, you're speaking for all Black Americans everywhere. And because we were raised and that pressure was put on us, we don't take this as an individual assault when we're talking about racist systems and structures. I think there has to be another word that we can use where our allies and our counterparts can really understand what we're trying to say here. If America is not a racist country, then there are racist systems at play in this country that have undermined the growth and opportunities for all people of color, not just Black people, but mostly targeted at Black people and then happen to hurt all other people along the way. So that's just something, I think there's got to be a way to talk about it because it is the systems and it is, we need to unbreak systems. We're not trying to break people. I'm not trying to take anyone's wealth. All I'm trying to do is, elevate and change a system that's hurting so many people.
Chelsea and Mark Leroy on the T Simple podcast coming through with the swift and precision responses. I hope you don't think I'm like testing you, but I'm just, trying to get your perspective.
It's a test in a good way. If it's a test, it's a good test. I think I'm passing.
You are passing, absolutely, especially that first question. And so again, as we close again, why should people, vote for you for school board, and what opportunities do you have coming up if you are elected?
For me, transparency, inclusion, accessibility. You need someone who sits at the table, who understands you, who cares about you, who lives where you live, and who wants to represent you specifically. In my community, we have a large AAPI community. We have a large Black and Indigenous community inside of our public schools. We have a large disability community inside of our schools. I don't think that there's anyone who's ever come to the table and is like, those are the kids specifically that I want to represent. So for me, that's what I want to bring to the table. I want to be...
You're breaking up. I'll see you.
If I voice, if I'm not the right conduit, I don't want... Ooh.
Yeah, just repeat what you said, but go ahead. Can I hear you?
I was just saying I want to be a conduit, and I want to bring in those allies who can speak to these specific issues and these specific people. I want those parents at the table. I want them to feel that the school board belongs to them. And that's the book I read at the beginning of my school year. It's all are welcome here. And that's what I want the school board to feel like. I want it to be that. That's what I always wanted when I went to school here. And I think that's what our kids and families deserve.
What are you going to do, if you have to, quote unquote, work with a quote unquote Joe Manchin, or work with someone, who is difficult and, they're not as progressive, what are going to be some of the strategies you're going to use to, get things moving?
Transparency. I am the queen of transparency, and I use transparency to be petty and to get things done. Just being honest. If people knew what was happening behind closed doors, people would get involved and get engaged. That's what happened to me. As soon as I knew there was a problem and that there are all these secret meetings happening that actually the public had access to, but we didn't know about it, it was over. So I want to do the same thing for the parents of this community. I think that there's things happening that they just don't know about. And if I'm working with someone who's not willing to move the needle forward, I'm going to be very transparent and share that.
Yeah, absolutely. 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 Chelsea, Mark Leroy, what is your district that you are running school board for? And then where can we find you?
All right. I am running for Tacoma Public School District position 4. We are a citywide race. So everyone in Tacoma, you can vote for me. If you're not in Tacoma, you can donate to me. You can find me online at www.chelseamcelroy.com. It's not spelled how it looks. CHELSEAMCELROY.com, and on Instagram at official Chelsea McElroy. We're on Facebook, Friends of Chelsea McElroy. Hop on this train. We're having a great time. And right now we're running unopposed. So let's keep it going.
Yeah. I'm excited. I'm excited for you. Cool. What do you want people to get from the podcast?
Honestly, come back. I want to listen again. I think you all should come back and listen again. There are teachers who are making change in this country. We are shaping the minds of the next generation. We should all be tuned into this podcast, Teach Simple. Yeah. How can we get involved? We should be listening. I want to listen again. I think everybody who I'm working with should tap in and listen again. Calvin, you're amazing. The work you're doing is transformational and it's important. So I think it's really cool. Teachers having conversations with other teachers and giving out teacher tips. Y'all, come on, join in.
That's the Simplicity, y'all. It's Teach Simple Podcast, focused on providing simple solutions in the classroom. I got my sister Chelsea. She's a master with the teacher voice, but she also is going to be very transparent with you. You know what I mean? Let's go ahead and get it, y'all. Please vote for her in Seattle. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
All right, thank you.
Cool.
Did we do it?